All right, great. Good morning, everyone. Today is Thursday, October 3rd, 2024. Welcome to Government Operations Committee. I believe we have one change to the agenda. You should have on your desk the appointment of Democratic Election Commissioner for 2025-2026. So I'm going to add this in under Board of Elections. There already is a resolution. So under number 7, we'll add that. Are there any other changes to the agenda? I don't think so. Okay. Comments from the public? Don't think we have any public this morning. Minutes approval from September 5th, 2024. Can I have somebody move that? Rich moves, Susan seconds. Questions, comments, concerns about the minutes? All right, all in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. I don't see Charlene here yet.
She should be joining us remotely.
All right, well, let's go ahead and do County Clerk because they're here and then they can get out the door. So we do have a resolution for County Clerk. Come on up. This is the resolution authorization to accept a grant from New York State Archives, County Clerk ID 12719. Can I have somebody move that? Rich moves, seconded by Susan. And good morning.
Good morning. So I'm not sure if you have any questions on the grant, but the grant is a shared services grant. And what we have done is we are going to be scanning the City of Ithaca Building Department and the Town of Dryden's payroll records and buying lots of licenses for the county also. This grant is for paying staff in my office that previously worked at Challenge Imaging to complete the grant.
Okay. Questions, comments, Mike?
Have you kept track of how many of these grants that we've been able to get over the years?
I have a spreadsheet.
How many do you estimate?
I would say $3 or $4 million. But I don't know how many.
What, 20 grants or something?
I've worked here a long time, so usually 1 or 2 a year. So yeah.
Do we ever scan the village records?
Yep, we've scanned most of the village records, villages.
I know Dryden had some of their original minutes had been through a fire, and wonder if they've been scanned.
Do you know if we've done those?
I have to look.
Yeah, I'd have to look. It was a long time ago.
Yeah,
if we did.
Just a thought.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I've just did the county clerk's records for so many years, but now I know all about code enforcement. You know, I town clerks and highway department guys and their financial records. And so I've made a lot of friends over the years, but it's been good. It's been a good project.
Great. Susan?
I just wanted to say thank you as a librarian. Digitizing records is extremely important. So it's a lot of work. I'm not sure people really understand how complicated it is. So thank you very much. It's great work.
Thank you. I don't do what my staff does, but yes, thank you.
All right, anything else? All right, let's vote. All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. Any other updates or anything you want to share while you're here?
No, I think we just finished the health department records in the last grant, and one of my staff was just up at the bunker, and my white deer was there, so we fed her apples. So anyone wants to go, let me know.
Great. Thank you so much for coming in.
I know, I'll call you. I didn't go.
Or there used to be nuclear storage there, so when everybody goes up there and sees, they come back with glowing reports.
I tell the whole history, so.
Bring your Geiger counter. Yep.
Thank you.
Great, thanks. All right, let's go to Charlene Holmes, our Chief Equity and Diversity Officer, who has a report for us.
Good morning, everyone. How are you doing?
Good morning.
Morning.
I am on a time zone difference, so thank you for having me, and I'm excited to share with you all a little bit about what was shared with our department heads in regards to our institutionalizing equity report, which is the first objective under our strategic plan organizational excellence pillar. And those words I use interchangeably, so please forgive me if we're using another terminology. So I'm going to give you a presentation today that was shared with department heads. You also should have two other documents with you. One, which is a info sheet about what an equity indicator is, and the other one is a more in-depth deep dive into our methodology and framework. That is what I will be presenting to you today. And then at the end, if you have any questions, you'll be able to ask. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay, can everyone see?
Yes.
All right, awesome. So I'm going to talk to you today about an institutionalizing equity report, which will be our equity action plan. I'm going to share our methodology and framework. It'll be an overview, very high-level overview, so that we can further discuss how we're going to develop this equity report and what we are asking department heads and our organization, the ask for 2025 and beyond. So as you know, we had just adopted our new mission and vision through our strategic plan. I wanted to make sure that we iterate that Tompkins County safeguards and enhances lives by providing services driven by the needs of its community. Our vision is that all Tompkins County residents thrive in a supportive, healthy, safe, and inclusive environment. We have our core values: respect, accountability, integrity, equity, and stewardship. And I always like to say that through our process of developing the strategic plan, GIAC and Southside hosted us for our community hearing sessions. And what came out of that was respect was needed to be ranked, respect needed to be ranked first in order for us to achieve any of our other core values. So that came out of those community conversations, and these are ranked in community order. So I just wanted to put that out there, that was a positive thing that came out of our community listening sessions at Southside and GIAC. So thank you, Southside and GIAC. Our diversity statement: Tompkins County Government Centers Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. We are committed to the empowerment of employees and residents to dismantle systemic barriers that inhibit inclusive governance and the provision of government services for all. So I've been in this role for 1 year, and the Equity Action Plan came as a result of our conversations around bringing our diversity statement to life. How do we ensure that these are not just words on a beautiful canvas in our departments, but it becomes a part of our everyday work? So the Institutionalizing Equity Report will be a strategic document that outlines our commitment to embedding DEI principles into the fabric of our governance, our operations, and our service delivery. This is the first piece and process across the national landscape on achieving that goal. And so in conjunction with the Strategic Operations Plan, this equity report will serve as a roadmap on how we will systematically integrate equity across all county departments, our policies, and our practices. And it will ensure that every aspect of our work is aligned with the values of fairness, justice, and inclusivity. Now, an institutionalizing equity report will serve as a strategic blueprint for equity. It'll guide our DEI integration. It'll provide us an opportunity for assessment and accountability. It'll be our catalyst for cultural change, and then our commitment to sustained action. Our methodology, we are dedicated as a county to embedding equity into our operations. So I'm going to share a methodology for achieving this goal, and it'll draw from our strategic plan priority areas and accompanied what we will call equity indicators. And by incorporating an equity mindedness framework, it'll help us leverage our current infrastructure, and that will aim to create a more systemic and comprehensive approach to equity. Now, in our approach to embedding equity, we want to use within Tompkins County Operations, we want to guide that through integrated strategic planning, equity indicators, and the equity mindedness framework. These will all work in tandem with each other. Excuse me, I'm going over my words. I want to make sure that I'm clear. So we will use a comprehensive methodology that integrates our strategic plan, our equity indicators, and the equity mindedness framework. And this will serve as a foundation for our departments to develop their work plans with this particular methodology. And the work plans will act as a primary conduit for embedding equity into our organizational practices. Now, to achieve this goal, we'll address 7 key questions that will guide our efforts and ensure a systemic and inclusive approach to equity. And these questions will help us evaluate current practices, identify areas for improvement, and implement strategies that promote DEI across all departments. Now, some of these key questions that are used to develop this report are: how do our current departmental policies and practices support or hinder equity? Or what data do we have to inform our understanding of equity issues? And any additional data that we may need to have a more comprehensive lens around that. What ways our departments can contribute to our county's strategic priority areas through an equity lens? And then how will we measure that effectiveness over time? So these are the questions that we developed in the equity report to answer these questions, and provide departments an ability to utilize a guide so that they're able to answer these questions through the scope of their departmental work. So the methodology will focus on this systemic integration, and it'll involve several key steps. The first step is the adoption of an equity mindedness framework. Then we will align that to the strategic plan, the utilization of what we will call equity indicators, and then key questions to help guide departments to answering questions that are arising specifically in their departmental scope and what is outlined in our strategic plan. The equity mindedness framework came from the Center of Urban Education and is now a part of the Race and Equity Center at USC's Rossier School of Education. The equity mindedness is a cognitive schema that leaders and staff can develop to address racial inequity within their organizations. It's a theory that aims to create sustained change by engaging with socio-historical context and facilitating equity-focused inquiry. And this inquiry helps people move beyond culturally conditioned assumptions and make evidence-based decisions. Now, the framework is as follows. I'm just going to go over it high level because you all have access to this in your packets. The framework has 5 dimensions. The dimensions are as follows: evidence-based, race-conscious, systemically aware, institutionally focused, and equity advancing. They run in tandem with each other, and you utilize them depending on the questions that you're asking. And we will work on developing that roadmap in the institutionalizing equity report, so this framework is outlined and easily accessible to department heads and staff. The strategic alignment will help. The strategic plan is a framework designed to guide our community toward a future marked in inclusivity, sustainability, and well-being. And central to this plan are 5 priority areas, which we all know: organizational excellence, equitable service delivery, economic opportunity and quality of life, climate change mitigation and resiliency, and health and safety. And each of these priorities is infused with a commitment to equity, ensuring that our efforts to advance these areas benefit all community members. And so I'm going to give an example of underneath equitable service delivery, we have to ensure that all residents have full and convenient access to person-centered county services. And we have what our ask will be. Those performance measurements are percentage of public and clients who indicate knowledge of county programs and offerings, and percentage of staff who receive equity training annually. So this is the way we know we would achieve this particular goal of convenient access to person-centered services under our equitable service delivery. Now, an equity indicator will be a measurable benchmark used to assess and monitor the progress of equity initiatives within an organization or community. And these indicators provide a quantitative and qualitative understanding of how well we are addressing those disparities and promoting fairness across various dimensions of our work. And by tracking those equity indicators, we can identify areas where inequities persist, evaluate the effectiveness of our interventions, and make data-driven decisions to enhance our strategies. Now, some equity indicator examples are grocery access and food deserts, transportation, poverty prevention, justice in government, racial diversity in neighborhoods. And if you take a deep dive, some of our departments are already doing this work. This provides us an opportunity to name the work that they're doing, track that progress over time, and benchmark and measure so that we can reassess and assess based on community needs directly. So it gives us an extra layer of inquiry and data that provides us with a more holistic scope to our community. So I always use COFA as my example. They are really doing a great job in this area. COFA measures some equity indicators now because they report to a governing body that requires them to do so. So for example, if COFA after the institutionalizing equity report has been distributed and COFA is developing their 2025 work plans, they could choose an equity indicator such as grocery access, and that will measure the availability of nutritious and affordable food options for older adults, particularly in areas known as food deserts. And they would be able to track that over time, and through that measurement and inquiry, be able to target their services in a more comprehensive way, affording them the opportunity to mitigate change in specific areas. For example, COFA caught wind of the diversity index that each of you have for your districts through our census data, and has already inquired about which communities they are seeing that they have not been able to or could enhance their communications and outreach to. And they will be using that data to inform that outreach. So we want our department heads to start thinking more creatively about how we can assess and reassess our service delivery and bring our diversity statement to life. So some of those key questions that we talked about to help department heads, help guide department heads in their work plans and strategic alignment would be questions such as, how do current departmental policies and practices support or hinder equity? Say they wanted to take that on. The details around that would be to review existing policies and practices for potential biases and barriers. What would be the outcome if they went through that process? The identification and removal of inequitable policies and practices. And what strategic priority would that fall under? Organizational excellence. So we want, once again, we want our department heads to be more creative, use more data, and move in the direction to align their work, naming their equity indicators, and align their work to the strategic plan so that we're able to embed that equity across the organization. Once again, some other questions that you have access to, and another strategic way for them to assess those questions. And so the ask in our department head meeting was that each department actively engage in the guidance provided in the completed institutionalizing equity report. And this includes leveraging the detailed methodology, framework, and the development of the equity indicators outlined in the report. And for 2025 work plans, each department is expected to select 1 to 2 equity indicators that align with our strategic plan priority areas, and they will measure that over time. The timeline is the methodology and the framework presentations. You all in my last presentation. In October, a draft of the institutionalizing equity report will be distributed. In November, we're seeking for editing and feedback from the entire organization and our external stakeholders. And then in December, if we should need to go through a legislative process, we will seek to go through that process for adoption. Questions, comments, or feedback?
Great. Wow. That was a lot of information. Thank you so much. We'll start with Mike Lane.
Yes, there certainly is a lot of information, a lot of hard work here. Thank you for this. I think there are a couple of slides that we don't have in our packet here.
Yeah.
That you showed. And I thank you for that. But one thing hit me when we were talking about your slide about equity indicators where you have examples. One of the things that's always bothered me is respect to incarceration, where I don't feel there's equal treatment of male prisoners and female prisoners, because the female prisoners are more likely to be transported out for kept in other jails because we don't have enough room for them here. I think that's an equity issue.
Yes. Yes, that would be we would be able to measure that over time, right? We would be able to name what we believe the issue was, right? Is there inequity in the differences between how males and females operate within the justice system? We would ask that particular department head and or departments to work together on identifying that equity indicator, identifying what they would like to track over time, and then build that into their work plan so that they're able to gain some knowledge and result around the evidence that is presented in that tracking, in that benchmarking. So that would be an awesome way for some of our justice departments to work together on identifying the differences in treatment between women and men who are incarcerated.
Yeah, I don't think it's anything intentional. It's simply the lack of room, and it's something we've got to address with the new facility or addition to the facility.
Yes.
Great. Other questions, comments? Rich?
Yeah, I had two questions. Thanks for this. What are the budget implications? Because it seems like we're off cycle on this, if there are.
At this time, I have not, as we're going through the budget cycle, I feel like these are things that our department heads are already doing, and they've already done an amazing job identifying where they will need budgets for their objectives in the strategic plan. This is more just a data and inquiry, a way for us to embed that equity lens across the organization. I don't anticipate that we'll need budget to assess and reassess how our service delivery, what our service delivery or the perceptions around our service delivery over time. I don't think this is tied to budget.
Okay. It would be a tough time of year this year to be.
Of course, yes. And I know that the timing, folks are like, oh my goodness, Charlene. But I just wanted to get it on people's radars before 2025. This is the 2025 and beyond. This is something that we are able to assess and reassess. But I wanted to introduce it during this time so folks are thinking about what will we do? How do we prioritize? How do we build our work plans in a way that allows us to be more evidence-based as we move forward with our strategic plan and achieving those objectives? And in that, we need to build in an equity lens. So I recognize it's a weird time, but from our lens to embed the equity, it's a good way for us to start thinking about how we're making our decisions and where we allocating our resources. So for 2025 and beyond, we could be a little more technical in that area in respect to our equity lens.
Okay. Thank you. The other question I had was, if this comes back to the legislature for a vote, we're not going to be voting on work plans, right? Because we don't generally vote on work plans, and that's intruding on the county administrator's divide of execution and policy. So it sounds like what you'd have us do is consider the report as a whole?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Because the goal would be that our legislature would be active participants as well in this equity report, in our institutionalizing equity report. So I would ask, right, if the legislature would be willing to adopt this lens and operate within this lens as we all, as an organization, try to achieve our strategic plan in the next 5 years.
Great. Thank you. Other questions? Susan?
I had a question about, this is fantastic work. It's a lot of work. Thank you. If this would be, you mentioned working with all the departments. I'm wondering about working with, I realize it'll take some time, but with agencies. I'm thinking of the rural libraries and the library. And I could see many organizations in the county where this would be an important plan to implement.
Yes, I shared an update with you all about the possibility of the Government Alliance on Race and Equity holding their regional convening here in Ithaca. And the conversation was about bringing practitioners from our region into a space where the county's work is being disseminated across those practitioner conversations. So right now, Gary is asking for this work to identify whether or not we'd be good candidates for that. So you are spot on, Legislator Currie, around how we might be able to influence the region around us with the work that we're doing so that they're also adopting this equity lens and integrating this equity into their work.
Thank you.
I just also wanted to appreciate you for this work. I do really appreciate the focus on data and looking at, hard facts, not just how people are feeling or thinking about it. I feel like, that's, well, some of us can't argue with the facts. And then my question for you is just, so I can imagine that there are department heads who are already doing these things. Like you said, this is already some stuff that COFA is doing. And I can imagine that there might be department heads who don't know how to go forward. I assume, but I'm asking, you will sort of help them through the process, help them choose their indicators or their priorities, because I'm sure, we have quite a range of folks with different experience levels who may need more support.
Yes, absolutely. I just want to say thank you to Bridget and to our strategic planning steering committee. We have secured Barry Dunn as well, for the strategic plan, and Barry Dunn will be helping our department heads identify some of their equity indicators, and I will be available. I'm also in the process of training our JEDI team to know how to I help. We are looking to make this an organizational effort, so department heads will not be alone in this. I also encourage the department heads to perhaps identify, as Mike Lane shared, an equity indicator that multiple departments can work on together, right? Because they're intersections of each other. So I hope to kind of open up that interdepartmental dialogue, as well as using our consultant, as well as using myself and JEDI, so that folks feel that they have holistic support for achieving this goal. And it's not looked at as extra work, but just a new way of adding it into the way that we operate as an organization. So I'm glad you asked that, Amanda, because it did come up.
Yeah, that's great, great. I think we have you, we have administration, there's a lot of support. So I'm also glad to know Barry Dunn will be helping as well. So, well, thank you. I don't see any more questions, and we really appreciate your work on this, and it's always good to see you.
I'm here. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, let's go on to Board of Elections. We have a resolution, acceptance of grant funding, submission of Help America Vote Act, operations expenses by Board of Elections, shoebox grant program, ID 12745. Can I have somebody move that? Greg moves, seconded by Mike. Questions, comments? All right, we ready to vote? All in favor? That's unanimous, thank you. All right, and then we have our added resolution, which is the appointment of the Democratic Election Commissioner for 2025-26, and that would be appointing Stephen M. DeWitt. Greg moves, Mike seconds.
I had a question, actually, if we can go backwards. Does anybody know what shoebox? Is it an acronym? It's capitalized.
That's where we keep our fund balance.
I was trying to think, I'm reading shoebox and I'm going, what does that have to do
finally
with
found
voting?
the money, Mike. Some of it's buried under the parking lot.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, I don't want to slow us down, but I was like, yeah.
Maybe we can reach out to our commissioners and ask them
The shoebox question, please.
what the shoebox is. Okay, I think we moved.
Sorry.
That's okay. I think we moved and seconded the appointment. Questions, comments, concerns about this resolution? Okay, all in favor? That's unanimous, thank you. All right, moving right along. So I did get a note that we do have to pull the resolution under administration, the budget adjustment. So we are not going to do that today. So you can scratch that off your list. And we will go on to the legislature resolution.
Was Bridget going to talk to us about anything?
Well, I will get to her down below.
Okay.
And so we talked last month about amending the rules of the legislature, and we have a resolution this month to follow up with that. So can I get someone to move the resolution amending the rules of the legislature, Rule 2, quorum, and the addition of Rule, what is that, 18? Remote attendance, ID 12776. Susan moves, Rich seconds. Rich.
I just had an edit on on line 43 on page 39. I'm sorry, line 44, after the state open meetings law.
After. Any other questions or comments? We did talk about this last month. All right, you guys are making it easy today. Ready to vote then? All in favor? That's 4, opposed, that's 1. All right, that passes, thank you.
I apologize, Amanda. It looks like your section for the charter review was moved down under advisory appointments, but it should be under legislature.
Oh, okay. All right, that's okay. And I actually should have asked you this before. I did not get any appointments in my packet. Did I miss them? At least, do other people have them?
No.
All right, well, we'll let them look into that.
I'll have them after.
Okay, all right. Okay, so let's talk about charter review. I thought it was appropriate to add in Article 5, which is about budgeting procedures and controls, since that is our season right now, and it's a bit long, but yeah, I thought it was useful. So any thoughts, comments, questions? Are we following these procedures and controls? Oh, you guys really are easy. Rich?
You know, I did have just a editing thought on capital program requests, and it's almost like a verbal tick. County's fiscal policy, and as it may be amended. You could remove that, you know, it's always as it may be amended.
On that first page?
Yeah. But it seemed like the process was laid out as we're generally following it.
Yeah.
I read this and I didn't see any, oh my God, we should be
Doing something different.
doing something differently.
Yeah.
I think that for all our angst about it, our budget process is thorough. It's, you know, ordered. We are looking at things in the appropriate steps. I think the budget retreat at the beginning of the year is really helpful, and that's not outlined here, but we do that as an additional thing to kick it off and to just sort of do a starting point of for the county administrator to take our temperature. But other than that, I didn't really have any comment here.
All right. Other thoughts? Mike, did you have your hand up?
I just want to point out, we can't really change this, make amendments to this without a brand-new local law amending the whole charter. So these kind of things that Rich is talking about, we probably should keep somewhere so that when we...
I didn't have strong feelings about making that amendment. I just saw it and go, ooh.
Yeah, and I think as we've gone through this year, different parts, Katrina and Jordan have been taking notes, and I think at some point, maybe early next year, we'll go back to some of those edits and see if there's enough that we all, want to go ahead and make a change, and we'll have to go through the process of that. I think there were a couple of things that we'll need to change related to the new election cycle.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we can always change things for the most part with the charter by local law. There are a few things we can't, but is it 26 we do the next charter review committee?
I'm not, is it 26 or 27?
27, because we adopted the last one 2017. I think Kathy told me to start looking into it in 2026.
Yeah, okay.
There's nothing to prohibit us from doing a review earlier than that if for some reason the legislature wanted to do that.
Right, yeah. But I assume that'll be, you'll appoint a task force or, there'll be a small group?
Special committee.
Special committee, okay. So folks will have the opportunity to serve on another special committee.
That was Dooley's committee.
Could see her enjoying that.
It was always a good experience because the committee went through and read everything line by line and had all the department heads in when their sections came up and went through them and made changes.
Yeah, I think it's an important process. Okay, other comments or questions on this charter stuff? All right. Okay, so we do have an appointment. This is for the Public Information Advisory Board, Patty Poist, which goes, I don't see how long it goes. Oh, expiration date, December 26. Patty has been on the PAB for many, many years. She is essential to that group, I would say. All right, ready to vote? All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, reports. I had two things to say. One is that I got a message from Megan Barber. Oh my God, I'm spacing on her name. From CAP, Community Arts Partnership. So it's time now at the end of this year to think about appointing our next poet laureate. It's been 2 years. And so normally there's a small group forums that Megan pulls together, CAP pulls together, of community folks. There's a legislator on it, and we meet several times. People can send in their applications, and then there's interview process. And I've been on that for the past couple of years, and it's always very rewarding because there's so many great local artists. But Megan asked if we could push that back a month or two because they have so many other things happening this fall. If we could maybe start the process at the beginning of January and then have a new person in place in February. So I personally said that was fine. I don't know if there's any objection to that. I think it might be hard for them to get it done in the next couple months. Mike?
So does the old poet laureate speak to us at our organizational meeting? Or does the new, or we don't have a new one at that?
We wouldn't have a new one. I don't feel like the poet has actually been at the organizational meeting. It's usually later in January or even February. So I think that, because there's so much else happening at the organizational meeting, but we would get them in as soon as possible in the year. And Greg?
Yeah, I have no feelings one way or the other about timing for the poet laureate. I think it's a great position, and I'm sure the folks at CAP and the committee will do a great job selecting it. I would just ask that maybe in 2026, and maybe it's something you could talk about with this small group, if there are other, I don't know if it's artist laureate or whatever the appropriate term may be, because I know that it would be an interesting way to potentially recognize a visual artist or you see something else as well within our community outside of just a poet. I would say in addition to.
Yeah.
I know we've talked about this before.
Yeah, we've talked about it, and I have kind of left the ball in Megan's court, and the gentleman who had reached out to me, who had suggested a similar thing, and I can follow up with her. I haven't heard back. I had suggested that they, put together some information, like are other communities doing this? What would it look like? What would this person do? Bring us some information, and then we could talk about it a little more. Life is busy. I think they probably haven't gotten to it, but I'll remind her that we're still interested and we'd love to talk about it more. Okay, I will let her know that it's fine to push it back a little bit. And then the other thing I was gonna say was that a month ago or so, I participated in the ITS cybersecurity tabletop exercise. Bridget was there, Dominic was there, Maury was there, lots of department heads and staff were there, and I participated a year or two ago when they had it, and this time was equally well done, and they kind of take you through day by day, like what you get, the ITS department gets a funny email, and then, then this happens, and then the phone's something happens, and so they kind of walk you through what would a situation be like, and how would you respond, and when do you bring in administration, when do you bring in police, when, so it's an interesting exercise. I definitely felt like our ITS folks know what they're doing, and it's organized by the Department of Homeland Security, and they were very much like, okay, you guys know a lot of this stuff. So it's an interesting event, and I was glad to participate and hear so much of like the ins and outs of like what is going on behind the scenes when, in the ITS department when something like that might happen. So I don't know if you want to say anything, either of you say anything about it.
Yeah, it was really amazing what ITS does. I almost started thinking of them as our immune system, which, it does a ton of work, and you're not aware that it's working, until there's a huge crisis, but it's constantly working, protecting us. It's really amazing.
Yeah, and there was points when the exercise said, you've gotten an employee whose computer, is reporting funny logins, and they're like, that happens every day, and they're just kind of like, that's not we'll deal with it, but that's not like a level of like threat to them, because they do it all the time. So, but they know when something becomes more dangerous, and they know the steps to do it. So yeah, it was good. Okay, that's all I have. So Bridget, any updates from county administration?
I think just a couple of brief status updates that I believe I've reported in other committees, but in the same vein, we convened Board of Elections staff, ITS, sheriff's lieutenant, actually, communications, a couple of folks from admin, and we were all hosted up at the Department of Emergency Response for an exercise that spoke specifically to a threat on the date of the election. So in a very similar fashion, we were able to talk through this specific event hour by hour and how we would all respond and coordinate with each other. And what was great to hear was the staff at Board of Elections ask a lot of really great questions and start to think through some of their own planning and how they will be updating their plans and making sure they have a clear line of communication with all of their poll workers and on-site supervisors. So we'll be following up in the next couple of weeks with just to check in on the action items that were brainstormed from that exercise. And I'm feeling really good about the coordination between our departments in advance of this pretty exciting election, I'll say. And then further, Charlene had mentioned just briefly that we do continue our work with Barry Dunn in terms of strategic plan implementation. Over the last couple of weeks, department heads have had the opportunity to have an initial consultation one-on-one with Barry Dunn and really ask for any assistance that they may need in terms of implementation planning. Some departments are great. They have their own work plans. They're working ahead and they're just talking about how they'll align it with the strategic plan. Other departments have identified objectives that are very new to them in their work plans, and we'll be getting some best practices research and other technical assistance from Barry Dunn as well. And all departments, as Charlene noted, will be working with Barry Dunn to identify equity indicators if they need that assistance. So we're pleased to be able to continue the work with Barry Dunn to see us through the remainder of the year and have us start strong in 2025 with more regular reporting to the legislature on the status updates around the strategic plan implementation. So that's it.
All right, thank you. Rich?
Sure.
I recall Barry Dunn was working under a grant.
Yes.
Who's giving us this money?
So it's a federal grant through the Appalachian Regional Commission, and we received it through a partnership with the Southern Tier 8 Regional Board.
Is that the resolution that was pulled?
It is. So we need to move the money forward to 2024. That was an oversight, but the amount listed in this this iteration of the resolution is incorrect. So our budget team is just working to fix that for next month.
Mike?
Bridget, you may not know the answer to this, and maybe Lori does or doesn't. On the ride down this morning, I was listening to the news about Cortland County and their budget process, and they're saying that they just got a bill for Medicaid, unexpected, for $1.3 million. I just kind of wondered if there's anything coming that we aren't anticipating and what that all might be about. I'm guessing it probably has to do with that take back on the FMAP, but
That's what I think so too.
I don't know.
Let's
Just thought I'd raise
hope
it.
that doesn't happen.
Yeah, I'm not aware.
Bridget, on the elections tabletop exercise, was this IPD involved? Did they go, or?
They have been involved in some of our pre-planning conversations. They weren't present at the actual tabletop, but we are in communication with the chief in terms of being able to call upon them. And Alana has been in direct communication with the chief on some of the sites that she thinks may need some additional assistance. So
Okay.
the communication has been there. Yep.
Okay, great. Great. Anything else for Bridget? All right, County Attorney, Maury.
I do not have a specific report. I'm happy to answer any questions members of the committee may have.
Great. Questions for Maury? All right, Director of Finance, Lori.
Good morning. I just wanted to let you all know that the airport PFC audit that is done annually is now complete and is in review. And I also wanted to let you know October 1st, Tuesday, began the foreclosure process for this coming year. And we started the process with 95 parcels. So,
Wow.
that's where we're at.
Just finished the other one?
Feels like it's still going on.
Greg.
Lori, if it's convenient at some point, could you follow up with the committee the breakdown of residential versus commercial? And is that something we could have sort of a running total throughout the update of how you clear those up?
Yeah, I have that right now, as a matter of fact.
even better.
We have 42 residential and 53 vacant and commercial.
Wow.
Rich?
I'm just trying to remember when you finally got to June, I think it was last year, was it 8 parcels?
It
It
was
was
like
pretty
7
low.
or 8, something,
Yeah.
yeah, it was very low.
I mean, that would be interesting to remind ourselves of this number
Yeah.
next year, because that represents a lot of work.
Yeah, Lisa Schott has mentioned to me the other day, she's like doing installment agreements to clear these up every day, so.
Yeah, we've been very, very busy with installment agreements. That's a huge change in the new regulations, and so many more than we used to have on those.
Mike?
What is that change?
So we now offer installment agreements. We've always offered them at certain points in the foreclosure process, but now we can offer them sooner and more often, if I'm explaining that right, Maureen?
I'm not exactly sure. Because I haven't run through it in the past, so when I came into it, it was sort of at the end of the process, so there were large numbers happening at the very end, which is almost the case. I think we probably went to double digits to single digits in a week before the auction. Yeah, the changes that were made are pretty consistent with the way the county's been doing it in any event. So I don't know that we'd see a material change other than that. I think, as Lori mentioned, we could do them sooner. But people, as soon as the foreclosure is filed, they're lining up to do them anyway. Before that process gets too far.
It seems like in the past, we didn't let people pay current taxes if there were back taxes owed. Is that true, or is that changed, or is that still the way it is?
I believe that's still the same.
Yeah, I think on that, if somebody has, an existing agreement in default, or they either have to clear that default or roll all of the back taxes into a single installment agreement.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Communications Director, Dominic, do you have a report?
Good morning. Thank you. I have a couple of notes today. I don't have a website update this month, but I anticipate that I will have one next month. That's still in process. I shared with you all also last month that the mailer regarding all county information and services is going out. That's in process of being printed, 46,000 copies, and they'll be delivered to residences over the next month across Tompkins County. And I have one copy of the draft. People want to see it and see what it's like, and maybe even compare it to last year's as well. We fit even more information on this year's, which was difficult to do. But it's a great project. I love working on it, and I think it's a unique opportunity for us here. And then the other thing I wanted to update you on was I do the highlights after every legislature meeting, and during this season, I do highlights after the budget related meetings from the expanded budget committee. And readership this year has increased quite a bit on those highlights from the budget meetings. That's probably several reasons why this year's particular budget instance of having 5% cuts and more attention on it may be one reason, but we've also just about doubled the audience of people who are getting them in their inbox year over year. So about an average of 1,900 readers are reading the emails that come on the newsletter. That's about a 50% open rate, which exceeds a lot of our other activities that we do. That's pretty staggering. And this is just for these particular highlights. And an average from those, about 200 clicks off to the specific department's budgets. So that's a lot of people clicking off to OpenGov and exploring those budgets from agencies or departments. Just wanted to share that that's a high number, and it makes it feel very worth it to put together those highlights after every budget meeting. I anticipate those numbers will also be high during the voting meetings this week and next. Beyond that, I don't think I have any other significant updates, so I'll just take if there's any questions for me as well.
Great, thank you. Mike?
Two things, Dominic. We got that nice piece at our meeting on Tuesday where there's a checklist of things that people should be doing, and understood that's not to be mailed, but I'd be nice to be able to get a supply of them to be able to hand out to folks.
Absolutely. So you're referencing this second piece. This is a full page
document. On the
document.
back there's a checklist, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that's the one.
On the back is a checklist. We put this together as sort of a checklist for residents new or people who've lived here their whole lives, who haven't done all of these things. They're sort of parts of our county government that that people have easy access to and should check off of a list. It's also on the back of the mailer that will go to every household. It's a little smaller there, and I'm making sure that these are also going to be available for you. So the one-page document that I gave each legislator one copy of, there are another 50 or so in the back of the room in that brochure rack, and I'm happy to give you more. We printed 500, and they'll be going out to every county building.
I was thinking about maybe having 20 of them or something like that.
Absolutely, I can make that happen.
And the other thing I wanted to ask about was at the Historical Commission, we were talking about the Historical Commission's website and the connection to the new county website. And I can't remember exactly what was said, but it seemed like there was some issue about the connection or the question. And have you been working with Commission member Simon St. Laurent about that at all?
I had communicated with Simon several months ago. This was likely April or May, about their intention to design a new website specifically for the commission that would live outside of anything that the county produces. Mm-hmm. I have offered pages on the county's website for the commission. And
he mentioned that, yeah.
And the historian has a section of the county's website that is still in need of updates in the next several months.
Well, if at some point, if you could contact him again, that would probably be nice, just to make sure you guys are on the same plane.
Okay, I'd be happy to.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you, Mike.
Yeah, thank you for all the highlights you write. We've said this before, but they're always they pull the most important information to the top, and they're easy to read, and I think very valuable. So I'm glad to hear that folks are clicking on it and reading more.
My pleasure.
I just wanted to say thank you too, because I forward everything to the neighborhood, the civic associations for my district, and I have a very active constituency, and they read it and ask questions, so I really appreciate the information.
I'm glad to hear it. Yeah, it's a lot of time, but it does, when I am able to see stats like that around a particular issue, it does make it feel very worth that effort.
Yeah, and I'm glad people are reading about the budget this year, and in previous years it has been kind of quiet, and so I'm glad that folks came to the budget forum, and that seemed like a good turnout.
Excellent.
Okay, anything else for Dominic? All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Committee members, any updates, reports, anything you want to share? Mike?
Well, just from the Historical Commission, I would just mention that they were glad to hear that administration is working on smoothing out that budget issue that had come up, and look forward to hearing about that. But Commission is really dedicated now to trying to get some of these booklets out. We're hopefully the booklet on the famous architect in Ithaca, William Henry Miller, for whom the bed and breakfast, of course, is named, is pretty close. Mary Tomlin, that used to be City of Ithaca historian, is working on that. Apparently she's toward the end of doing footnotes and things like that, but that's something a lot of people are looking forward to that one. And there's suggestions for a book on Barnes and Danby, and of course the LGBTQ book that someone is already, we think, working on, who we've talked with. But if we don't have the funding that we had asked for in the county budget, it's going to make it difficult to publish those. And I think it's about $8,500 that had been originally put in.
Okay, anything else? Rich?
Just an update. I don't know if this is government operations, but I hosted a meeting last evening between the community members and INHS about our property and that we sold and the progress of putting the homes together. And, you know, I'd mentioned that I've spent a lot of time talking to these residents. And I said last night, I never heard one complaint about putting housing on Sears Street, and particularly putting affordable housing on Sears Street. They are so excited about getting more neighborhood. It was really a nice capstone to it last evening. The INHS is going at great speed. They've dug out the old foundations of the houses that were torn down, I think illegally, many, many years ago, and are pouring the new pads, and we'll have the homes there in November. They're talking about organizing a street party when the cranes come in and set the houses. They're going to probably do it in one day, and that's going to be in November. So real progress and a success point, I think, for the county.
And a long time coming.
Well, I did make the point, and we were very difficult. But we got there.
We got there. We got there.
Rich, these are going to be for sale houses, right?
They are. They're part of the Community Housing Trust program, so that they're available to people at a lower price. But the deal is they get a set amount of appreciation, and when they go to sell, they share in the profit. They don't, if it appreciates, which it will, but they don't share in a windfall. That's the trade-off. But it's an affordable opportunity to be an owner.
All right. Well, we have had a lot of meetings in the past couple weeks, so we are going to end a little early today, and thank you all for coming, and I will see most, if not all of you, tonight. We are adjourned. Thanks.